Wow.
And we'll give you the game. We can mail it to you if you like. And see, right here it says Greenpeace arrives.
What would you hope environmental organizations looking at this film would get out of it?
To stop and take a breath and rethink. We need to rethink our strategies. We need to think about everything we're doing and figure out what else we can do and how to be creative. To me, that's part of the message of the film, is not to just keep doing what's been done before, but we need to step back every day and rethink ourselves and rethink our strategies and work together. That we need diversity in the ecology movement, and don't be afraid of different people with different groups and different strategies. Work together, join together, make alliances, and keep recreating the movement.
You know, as I looked at this film, it dawned on me that as much as we work on the environment and external issues, it's important to work on ourselves as well. You know, have you thought about that? Have you thought about the role of personal evolution and what you bring to the environmental movement?
Well, I think what you bring to everything you do in your life. If someone wants to be an agent of change, if you want to be an agent of change, you need to work on yourself enough that you can quiet your own ego, you can avoid your own personal and private biases, see the world for the way it really is, see yourself for the way it is. It's very, very important to make yourself a better agent of change. Is absolutely critically important, because one thing I mention in this film, I believe very strongly, is that we are always the weakest link in our social movements. We, the people that are undertaking to change the world, we're always the weakest link in our own movements because of we're human, because of our frailties, because of our egos primarily. And you know, if we can learn to work, you know, modestly and to take ourselves less seriously and to contribute without trying to control, will be more effective. So yeah.
What would you hope other environmental organizations, even Greenpeace, looking at this film, would get out of it? What would they learn from it?
That humans are flawed and our leadership is our biggest problem, our ability to cooperate and share ideas without alienating each other. Without those things being worked out, you're really not going to get anywhere. I don't know any model that works with those in place. And as you can see in the film, that almost happened to Greenpeace. It almost destroyed itself. Only transcendent thinking saved it. So the idea is to keep transcending, keep communicating, stay open, stay positive, and follow the golden rule.
Do you think one thing that occurred to me watching this film was that it's important to work on ourselves too?
Yes, exactly.
You know, to improve ourselves
yes.
As we go out trying to change things in the world.
Yes.
We also have to pay attention to
yes.
how our inner self is working.
Well, that's right, because everything grows from the inside out, you know, outward expression.
Yeah.
And what we experience affects us internally, and then that affects our behavior in turn. Well, again, I have to point to Bob Hunter as a good example of that. He was a person who believed that he had such a huge ego that he would never be able to accomplish anything. So he devoted himself to destroying his own ego. And he tried every means that we know of, you know, meditation, drugs, counseling, everything you can think of, all kinds of spiritual things. And really what he came down to was that you can't destroy the ego, but you can use it, but you have to understand that it's really perhaps the more baser part of our character, and our transcendent part is getting over all that and seeing beyond that. And one of the things that I personally feel is important is that each of us has to become everything. We have to be a man, we have to be a woman, we have to be a whale, we have to be a child, we have to be the wise elder, you know. All these things we have to incorporate within ourselves consciously so that we access them as we think, and they're right there with us. So you have to become everybody to be yourself.
Is there anything in the film that you wished you had said, or
Yes.
things that may be left unsaid?
Well, I'll tell you one little secret is I misquoted Allen Ginsberg, but there it is, stuck for history. He said, "Let go of power before it destroys you," which is a little heavier.
Now it's filtering down to the racial
so
stereotypes and these
Facebook's tools.
Jerry, what was the most interesting part of making this film? I know the whole thing was interesting, but was there one exceptional thing that struck you personally?
I think, I mean, you know, I guess for me the starting point for the film was finding this archive, which for me sort of told this story about the people that was slightly different from the story of, you know, the Whale campaign or the Seal campaign. So when it came to interviewing them, you know, it's a sort of incredible privilege that you'd learnt a lot about them just by watching them, their younger selves on this boat, and then to be able to sort of, you know, have a conversation with them about that was just great. It's one of the joys of filmmaking, I guess.
Well, I thought you were very successful in cutting the present day and the players as they are now with the archive footage.
Yeah.
And you won an editing award at Sundance.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I mean, we were always interested in trying to get that interplay between the past and the present, and the idea that our sort of, you know, our younger selves are sort of still within our older selves, and to be able to sort of cut between them in their 60s and 70s and them in their 20s and 30s. I mean, they were very young when they started out. Paul Watson was 19, I think, when he first joined the first Greenpeace voyage.
And what was it that drew you to this topic? How did you come to get interested in it?
I think, I mean, I've spent a lot of time in groups that sort of, you know, run themselves collectively and make decisions by consensus, and so I was interested in the way groups work, and Greenpeace is like the archetypal group like that, because it went from so quickly from, you know, a small group of friends in a boat with an idea to an international organisation, maybe in the space of 3 or 4 years. So they had to grapple with sort of success in the way that like a band that suddenly has a hit single or something does. And I guess, you know, that I was always interested in exploring them as a group and how they thought of their younger selves and the things and their relationships with each other.
Yeah, I thought you handled the controversial characters in the film very well. You know, I've been a part of Greenpeace myself, and I've had encounters with some of these players, and I was a little bit worried on the coverage of Patrick Moore. I mean, because he's become a spokesman for Monsanto, nuclear industry, mining, logging, and at the end, I thought you really dealt with that. You know, you really.
I mean, I think that my feeling is, in a documentary, you have to, you know, in a sense, however you view whatever opinions you have about the person, you've got to kind of view them from the inside, you know, to make it work, to help us understand how this, you know, what's going on, or a particular situation. You've got to understand the person from the inside, you know. So for me, it's important to try and understand how did Patrick come to the views that he's currently got.
That's a mystery to many.
Yeah.
What's the most interesting question or comments you've received about the film so far?
I mean, I think there's a lot of interesting. A lot of people come to the film with a lot of with sort of knowledge or an opinion about Greenpeace. So a lot of people say, "Oh, I didn't think I was going to enjoy it, but I did," and that. So you're kind of always grappling with this opinion people have. Either they feel they know the Greenpeace story, but maybe they don't know that part of it, or they feel like overexposed to Greenpeace, you know, because Greenpeace are emailing them every day about this or that issue. So it's always trying to get past that. So I think at the point at which you start to get questions which are not even related to Greenpeace, but are about what happens when groups of people get together to do stuff, that's when it gets interesting or creates an interesting conversation.
Do you think that the internal conflicts of these organizations sabotages their effectiveness even more than what they're trying to combat?
I think they're inevitable. I mean, I suppose one of the things in the film is that we shouldn't really in a way shy away from these things or imagine that they're not going to happen. You know, I think they're in the inevitable dynamics of every group, and what we need to do is to understand those dynamics and why they happen. And I think Bob Hunter was a really interesting character as someone who was able to sort of bind people with really big differences in their outlook on the world together into a single task. You know.
Yeah, well, you know, I think the film was very powerfully successful in showing how a group of small, determined people can springboard something so you know, important later on.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did have an enormous impact, you know, and I think certainly the kind of whaling moratorium is something that really came out of those years and had a, you know, saved species of whales.
I really appreciate your telling the story.
Oh, thank you.
Myself being part of it
Yeah.
at some point in time. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for the footage.
Now, do people in Greenpeace come to you as an elder statesman of the movement asking for advice? And have you been approached that way?
Not a lot. The organizations don't tend to ask for advice. A lot of individuals ask for advice. But you know, I think people want to reinvent the organization and make it work. Make it work themselves. And yeah, sometimes I'm approached for my opinion, but. You know, the thing is, I don't think my opinion necessarily is. I don't have all the answers for what Greenpeace or any organization should do. I don't think my opinion is necessarily so important. So I'm not too worried about that. But but the organizations, including Greenpeace, all of them do need to rethink themselves all the time.
I think part of it is the sharing the thing.
So no, it's not like they phoned me up and asked me what I think they should do.
Did you feel complete in this film, or was there something left unsaid that you wanted to say?
Well, I don't think any film is complete, and I don't think any statement on the ecology is complete. So the film is one take on one period of history, talking about the development of the ecology movement in the early days of Greenpeace. So no, there's a lot else to say, and there's many more films to be made, and you know, the one thing this film does not do necessarily is doesn't really talk about, so what are we going to do now? It's a historical film, right? So there's a lot left to say because, of course, all the issues that we're dealing with in the 21st century, many issues that we didn't imagine we'd be dealing with 40 years ago. So it's a new world, and we have to rethink it all the time. And the challenges we face now in ecology, they're bigger than the, you know, it's not better today. It's, you know, we're not necessarily winning all the time. So, you know, we have to go back to the drawing board every day.